What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're back with another deck profile. And this time we're featuring the Mega Gardevoir EX deck that we were using in our testing rounds video. So if you guys haven't seen that yet, I'll be sure to put a link for you guys to look at that. And so since this is from our testing rounds videos, that does mean this is kind of our first draft of the deck. So there might be room for improvement here, but we like where we're starting out. And I definitely do like this Mega Gardevoir concept in general. So let's see what all the hype is about, I guess. So since, like we said, it is Mega Gardevoir, we are going to be playing 4 Gardevoir EX. I am opting to play the one from Primal Clash, just because it has the Life Leap attack for 1 Fairy Energy. It does 20 damage, and you can heal 20 as well when you do it. The other newer Gardevoir EX that came out, it does have an attack that can do more damage, but it requires 2 energy, and it's a little bit more situational. Both you and your opponent have to have the same amount of energy. So I prefer just to use this one. That way if we go second and we start with Gardevoir, we can attack and maybe do some 20 damage. That might make a difference for our math as far as taking knockouts later in the game. So I opted for that, but maybe you could play around with the counts. Maybe you can drop 1 for one of the ones from Steam Siege. But we're opting for 4 just because the new Mega Gardevoir we'll talk about in a second, it lets you discard your bench Pokemon. So sometimes it's nice to be able to have an extra Gardevoir to discard to do more damage. And also, it's our main attacker, so we want to have as many of these as possible. We don't really run backup attackers. So not only can we use this to fuel Mega Gardevoir's attacks, but it also increases our odds of starting with it, which is really important, because we do have a lot of worthless bench sitters in this deck. So next up, since like we said, it is based around Mega Gardevoir, we're playing 3 copies of this guy. So it's one of these cool new dual types that Steam Siege is going to give us. It's part Fairy, part Psychic, so that's really neat. You can take advantage of different Fairy and Psychic support depending on how you want to build a deck around this guy. But it has 210 hit points, and the attack is Despair Ray, so has a base damage of 110, which is really nice because that 2-shots pretty much all of the relevant Pokemon that are currently being played. So even if they have like a Fighting Fury belt, it's still 2 shots, their EXs. But yeah, so it does 110 damage, but you can opt to discard as many Pokemon from your bench as you like, and you do 10 more damage for every Pokemon you discard. So that's really cool because typically you have all these things sitting on your bench like Shaymins and Hoopas, and you normally have to AZ them to take them off the field and prevent your opponent from taking easy prizes. But it's really cool because Gardevoir actually will let you not only get rid of all these worthless bench sitters, but it'll let you do more damage by getting rid of them. So that's really cool. And we are building this deck around Skyfield as opposed to Dimension Valley. So we're opting for Skyfield. That way we can do more damage with this attack. But we'll get to that when I talk about the trainer cards. So Gardevoir's the main attacker. He's cool because he's a big 210 hit point Pokemon, and he, gets rid of all these easy prizes off your bench. So it's kind of what makes him cool. It is worth noting though, he is weak to Metal, which is kind of unfortunate because this deck profile is for the Worlds format, XY to Steam Siege, and Metal decks and Genesect and Aegislash are still all very popular. So Gardevoir might not have a good matchup there, but I think after rotation, especially, I think this deck gets better. Maybe we can do another profile then as well. But it is resistant to Dark, which is nice, because Zoroark and Yveltal are still popular. But anyway, so next up we have 2 Hoopa EX. So since we do play a Mega Evolution, Hoopa's great because we can grab a couple Gardevoirs and a Mega, or maybe like a Shaymin or something to keep setting up. And because we can discard our Hoopas later, we're going to play 2 of them because we can, between Skyfield and Gardevoir's attack that lets us discard them, we can really play down a lot of these bench sitter Pokemon pretty aggressively and not have to worry about things like bench space or your opponent taking easy prizes. So I definitely like 2 in this deck. And then we're also playing 4 Shaymin EX just to help us get set up. Like we said, we can discard them later on. So this engine of this deck will actually look very similar to anyone who's played with or against Mega Rayquaza, just a super aggressive setup based engine. You know, less draw supporters, more emphasis on abilities to get set up. But yep, so again, we're just opting to max out Shamans at 4 just because it increases our consistency and we can just discard them later if we don't want them. Then after that, we're only playing 2 other Pokemon. One's actually going to be the new Hawlucha. So Hawlucha has this cool ability, Sudden Cyclone. Whenever you bench Hawlucha, it forces your opponent to switch their active with their bench Pokemon. That's really cool if they're trying to, you know, maybe attack you with some sort of non-EX in order to deny you prizes. You can, you know, bench Hawlucha and make them set up something else that you want to attack. Or if they just have like Shaman on their bench and nothing else, you can use it to get easy Shaman knockouts. And again, we can just discard this guy with Mega Gardevoir's attack and potentially reuse it later. So I really like this Hawlucha card. It's pretty, especially right now since this is for the Worlds format. Trevenant is still a popular card. So you might need to bench Hawlucha at some point to, you know, get out of item lock and let you play down your item cards again. And then after that, the only other Pokemon we're going to run is one of the Stardust Jirachis. So unfortunately, Mega Gardevoir does have some problems against a couple of different attackers. Your Mega Rayquaza matchup is not very good. They can one-shot you, you two-shot them. If we were playing the Dimension Valley version of this deck, you could maybe argue against the inclusion of this guy, since you can deny your opponent one-shot or one-hit knockouts by bouncing their stadium. So I definitely think you need this guy to potentially survive Mega Rayquaza. Giratina EX is another big one. So our only attacker is a Mega, and Mega Gardevoir is not going to do well against Giratina unless we can maybe stall them out and get rid of some energy to slow them down until we draw into like a Hex Maniac or something. And also just against Night March, you know, if you go first against Night March, even if you start with the Gardevoir EX, they can still probably take a knockout on you the following turn, on the first turn of their game. So there's a couple of different decks that rely on special energy that Jirachi is good against. So, and for you guys that don't know, Stardust does 10 damage, and then it discards a special energy off your opponent's active Pokemon. And if you do, Jirachi is immune to basically everything from your opponent's attacks on the next turn. Pokemon Ranger is a thing now, but I do think one is still worth including. I definitely think this card is still a powerful card to use. So I would definitely much rather my opponent waste their supporter on a Pokemon Ranger as opposed to something like a Sycamore or something else for the turn. But yeah, guys, that is it for the Pokemon line. Next up, we are going to talk about our trainer cards. So for the supporters, we have 2 Professor Sycamore. Discard your hand, draw 7. Pretty self-explanatory why that's good. Like I said, our draw power is more based from our abilities like Hoopa and Shaman, so the supporter count is not very thick in this deck. But so far, it's been doing the trick. We also play 2 N. So, you know, N's another just very good card. Shuffle your hand in, and both you and your opponent draw equal to the amount of prizes they have left. So it's good in the early game because it'll let you conserve resources instead of sycamoring them away. And then in the late game, you can use it to punish your opponent and put them down at a low hand size. So next up, we also have 1 AZ. Good card because we can reuse effects like Shaman, Hawlucha, Hoopa. We can also potentially heal off Mega Gardevoirs that way. So if something has to two-shot your Mega Gardevoir, you can potentially AZ it up and heal it and promote a different attacker instead. 1 Lysander. I only think we need 1 in this list just because we also play Escape Rope and also the Hawlucha as well, which we can reuse thanks to things like Sacred Ash and AZ if we choose. So I think you only need 1 since we already have other ways to force our opponent into switching into something else. And then just 1 Hex Maniac to close out our supporter line. So I think this is mainly for Giratina EX. Giratina is super popular, and he does wall against Mega Pokemon, so we do definitely need an answer to that. But it's also good. There's other things that you might want to turn off. You know, if you're going against a metal deck, you definitely want to shut off their ability to use Bronzong's Metal Link's ability. Other things like Trevenant and Vileplume that might make your deck run a little odd and slow you down. So Hex is definitely a good card to have. So transitioning into the item cards, we are going to have 4 versus Seeker. So this is just maxing this out. That way we can reuse all of our supporters as much as we want during our turns. We're also playing, let's see, 4 Trainer's Mail, just another good consistency card. So by playing this, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, pick a trainer card, put it in your hand. Pretty self-explanatory there. 4 Ultra Ball. That way we can grab our Hoopas. Basically, if you play 1 Ultra Ball, it basically turns into 4 Pokemon because you can grab a Hoopa, which then from there can grab 3 other Pokemon. So there's really not a need for any other, I think, search cards in this deck. Then next up, 4 Gardevoir Spirit Link. Just to max this out for optimal consistency, we definitely want to hit the turn 2 Despair Ray, and playing 4 is optimal. Especially too if we discard a Mega Gardevoir using a different Mega Gardevoir's attacks. Maxing out our Spirit Links gives us more chances to potentially Mega Evolve into another Gardevoir later in the game without having to end our turn. So I definitely like 4 in this list. Okay, next up we have 4 Puzzles of Time. So I love Puzzle of Time in any deck really that you can find the room for. I noticed there were some open spots left in this list as I was building it. So Puzzle of Time is always a great card to include if your deck can afford that much space. So this is great because we can reuse our supporters. Reuse anything in the deck if you play 2 of these at the same time. So this is really important. It'll let us reuse Mega Turbos, Sacred Ash, all sorts of things. I definitely like this card. It's hard to say. Unfortunately, it would be one of my first type of cards to cut if we had to make room for other stuff. But as of right now, I do like this. Like I said, if your deck can afford the space for Puzzle of Time, I see no reason not to play it. Okay, then we also have 2 Mega Turbo. So luckily Mega Gardevoir's attack isn't too demanding. It just takes a fairy and then 1 other energy. So typically if you attach on the first turn and then you can attach on your second turn to finish powering it up. But there might be some point in the game where your only powered up attacker gets knocked out and you might have to power up another one pretty quickly. So Mega Turbo just gives us more flexibility in terms of powering up our attackers throughout the course of the game. And of course, like we just said, we can reuse them with Puzzles of Time later if we do choose to. We're also playing 2 Sacred Ash. This is kind of an interesting inclusion. Most decks either play 1 of this or sometimes none at all. But since we are, we want to discard all of these Pokemon to fuel Gardevoir's attacks. By playing 2 Sacred Ash, it lets us keep reusing these Pokemon to ensure that our deck is constantly consistent throughout the course of the game. So if we discard a bunch of Hoopas and Shamans early on to power up Gardevoir's attack, well, guess what? We can just Sacred Ash them back into the deck, reuse their abilities, and fuel up Gardevoir's attacks for later in the game as well. So we're playing 2, since this deck, like I said, is reliant on having to constantly refill and reuse all these bench Pokemon. So we're also playing 1 Escape Rope. So this is good to get around things like Giratina EX, or if we start with something less than favorable like Hoopa or Shaman, or really just anything that isn't Gardevoir. It'll let us get out of the active and promote somebody else that we actually want in the active spot. So it's our only switching card other than AZ, but luckily we do play the Puzzles of Time, so we can reuse these cards to maneuver out of the active spot at different points in the game. So next up we're playing 1 Enhanced Hammer. I think this is another card that's pretty important just because Mega Gardevoir does have some pretty glaring weaknesses against certain decks that are reliant on special energy. Giratina EX is the big one, like we said. It walls your Mega Gardevoirs. So if we can slow down a Giratina maybe with a Jirachi and an Enhanced Hammer, that can be really good. You can also do cool things like if you're playing against Mega Rayquaza. Again, Mega Rayquaza is typically a hard matchup for you. So if you hammer off some of their DCEs, you might be able to buy yourself a turn or 2 to clean up some knockouts you might not have been able to do otherwise. So you can also do things like, again, let's just use Mega Rayquaza as an example. If you can just Lysander Shaman and Enhanced Hammer every turn, thanks to Puzzles of Time, or even just a couple times in a game, I think you can win that way to prevent your Mega Gardevoirs from getting knocked out before you lose, basically. It's also good against Night March. There's just so many different decks that I think are weak to Special Energy Disruption. So, and Mega Gardevoir does struggle against some of them. Even Night March, I think, can potentially beat this Mega Gardevoir deck. So, Enhanced Hammer is just a good in a lot of different instances. You can debatably cut this for a Xerosic if you choose to. I opted for Hammer though, just because we probably want to play other supporters. But experiment with that. Maybe you'll like Xerosic better. And then for the last of our trainer cards, we're just playing for Skyfield. So this is nice because it'll allow us to bench a bunch of additional Pokemon. Skyfield lets you have up to 8 Pokemon on your bench, so that gives us more and more targets to fuel Gardevoir's Despair Ray with. So we're just maxing that out. I do want to try Dimension Valley. We've only tested the Skyfield-based version of Mega Gardevoir, but I do think Dimension Valley is worth considering. Because of my testing so far, Mega Gardevoir really isn't going to take one-hit knockouts most of the time. To knock out 180 hit point EX, you have to discard 7 benched Pokemon. So that means you're probably going to have to discard some Gardevoirs in the process. And that's just a lot of resources to get rid of on one knockout. So to be honest, based just in theory, I haven't tested the Dimension Valley version, but that seems like it might be a better route to go because it might allow you to cut down your Mega Turbos as well, since you would only have to attack for 1 energy with Mega Gardevoir. So we haven't tested that one out yet, but if any of you guys have, let us know how that's working for you. I definitely want to try that as well. But right now, Skyfield's cool just because it does let us play down multiple Hoopas and Shamans and not have to worry about bench space as much. So there's still some merits to Skyfield outside of the additional damage. You can just be a little bit more liberal with how often you bench stuff. And that's it for the trainer cards, guys. Just to round out the list, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Fairy Energy. And that seems like a fine count to me. Mega Gardevoir is a pretty low maintenance attacker. It only takes a Fairy and a colorless, so. And between Mega Turbo and all of the draw support that we have in this deck, it's usually not too hard to hit these things when you want to use them. So yeah, guys, that is our first attempt at a Mega Gardevoir EX deck. I hope you enjoyed this. Mega Gardevoir is definitely one of my personal favorite Pokemon from Steam Siege. So I really do want to try to make this archetype work. The Skyfield version seems cool so far, but like I said, I do want to try the Dimension Valley version as well. But if there's any other changes or cards that you disagree with or think we should have added in here, feel free to let us know below in the comments too. I'm definitely curious to hear what everyone else is playing. But yeah, guys, that is it. As usual, feel free to like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out our merch at rarecandytcg.com. And speaking of which, we are doing a sale right now on all of our Seismitoad and Night March related merch that we have. So playmats, dice bags, t-shirts. They're all on sale right now until the end of August. So check that out too. But yeah, guys, I appreciate you watching, and we will see you guys for the next one, okay?